Jerusalem is a city under siege, and not for the first time. From stories in the Bible to United Nations resolution, this is a city forged in conflict. It has seen crusades, it has seen intifadas, and now those fault lines have been ignited again. This is what Jerusalem looks like right now. The streets are crawling with Israeli police. Flashbangs are flying overhead and injured Palestinians are being rushed to hospitals. At least 300 protesters have been hospitalized. Some of them are in critical condition. This is Israel's worst crackdown in recent history. Some West Asian news outlets are hinting at a third intifada or uprising. So how exactly did things descend into chaos? Why are the Palestinians protesting, and what is the world saying about Israel's brutal crackdown? It all started with a Supreme Court hearing. The judgment was due today, but it's been postponed after the violence. What was the case about? In Jerusalem, it can only be about three things: religion, land, or a combination of both. This case centered around Sheikh Jarrah. It's a Palestinian settlement near Damascus Gate. And Damascus Gate is one of the main gates in the old city of Jerusalem. Now today the court was to decide whether this land should be given to Israeli settlers. And considering the past, the judgment was a foregone conclusion. In fact, some Israelis had already started moving in. Watch this.
Jacob, you know this is not your house.
Yes, but if I go, you don't go back. So what's the problem? What are you yelling at me? I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
But
it's easy to yell at me, but I didn't do this.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
No one is allowed to steal it, يا عمي.
זה לא שלי להחזיר.
בוא נגיד שזה יש.
If I don't steal it, someone else will. You see what's happening there. This video went viral. Palestinians mobilized. They organized protests saying more evictions would soon follow. This was flashpoint number 1. Flashpoint number 2 started sometime in mid-April, the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan. Palestinians wanted to meet in the old city after breaking their fast, but Israeli police set up barriers. They prevented them from gathering. Why? No particular reason. Israel says they're maintaining order, but this was supposed to be a peaceful religious gathering. And that's what happened over the weekend. But today things went up a notch. Israeli officers unleashed a wave of violence on the protesters, and most of it was centered around the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam after Mecca and Medina. And these pictures are from earlier today. Palestinian protesters armed with stones. Israeli riot police with flashbangs and batons. It was a no contest. Hundreds of Palestinians were driven away by Israeli firing. In the background, you can see Al-Aqsa and its iconic dome. This is a mosque that has witnessed violence before. It is located on a hilltop, a controversial hilltop at that. The Jews call it Temple Mount, the holiest site in Judaism. The Muslims call it Noble Sanctuary, the third holiest site in Islam. The two religions have fought over it for years, and they continue to do so. So coming back to the crackdown, why did it intensify today? Because today is Jerusalem Day. On this day, Israel captured eastern Jerusalem. This was during the 1967 Arab-Israel War, the so-called Six-Day War. Israel won that war against all odds. And every year, Israel celebrates it with a march through the old city. Palestinians say it is a deliberate provocation. So today security was beefed up, but in Jerusalem security is offensive, which explains why the police stormed Al-Aqsa, and that too in the holy month of Ramadan. Many of the protesters ended up fleeing inside the mosque, and these are some of the pictures they sent out. Israel's crackdown is not new. They have oppressed Palestinians, evicted them from their homes, and moved into their neighborhoods. And none of this is sanctioned by international law. But Prime Minister Netanyahu says he will continue doing it.
This is not a mission that we can carry out without conflict from time to time with those same forces of intolerance that want to take away our rights. First of all, our rights, but not only ours, to the Temple Mount and the other holy sites. We are determined to ensure the rights of all, and this requires from time to time to stand up and stand strong as Israeli police and our security forces are doing now. We support them in this just struggle. These things, of course, have been incorrectly misrepresented in global media. In the end, the truth will prevail, but we must persist and say it.
The Prime Minister has made it clear the settlements will continue, so will the crackdown on Palestinians. But does he have the support for all of this? Globally, Israel stands isolated. The biggest setback came from Washington. Donald Trump, you see, largely ignored Israel's abuses in the West Bank, but Joe Biden has a different approach. Today, the State Department condemned the violence in Jerusalem. It asked Israeli officials to immediately de-escalate. So that's one big ally pulling out from Israel's corner. But then again, knowing America, it will not go the whole hog. It's Israel after all. What about the Islamic world? They have united against Israel, including the countries that have normalized ties with them. In Turkey, there were protests outside the Israeli consulate. Their president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is looking to capitalize on the issue. He has called Israel a terror state. Similar reactions have come from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain and Iran. Even the Pope has weighed in. He called for the multicultural identity of Jerusalem to be upheld. It's safe to say that Israel is alone in this battle, and frankly, that is not surprising. The United Nations says this crackdown could qualify as a crime against humanity. The European Union feels this makes a two-state solution even more difficult. So where do things go from here? There are three things to note. Number one, as bad as it looks right now, things could get even worse. The West Asian publications are right. This does have all the makings of a third intifada, and the violence could easily spiral beyond Jerusalem. From the Gaza Strip, operations have already started. Rockets and incendiary balloons have been intercepted. Chances are Israel will respond in kind to these attempts. Point number two to note. This is a setback to Israel's normalization efforts. Islamic countries have mobilized against them, and any hope that they had of signing a deal with Saudi Arabia has disappeared, at least for now. On the flip side, this has injected new momentum to the Palestinian cause. For a while, it seemed like Arab nations were abandoning Palestine. But this has brought the focus back on them. How the fragmented leadership steers this focus is a different question altogether. And point number three. More trouble for Netanyahu. He has lost his mandate to form the government. So this could be the parting blow from a defiant leader. He wants to push a hardline image. But in the process, he has lost international allies and made no gains in domestic politics. 4 elections in 2 years, and Netanyahu failed to form a government. His position is becoming increasingly untenable. So that's how things stand right now in Jerusalem, a city teetering on the edge. But betting against Jerusalem is never a good idea. This is a city that's been destroyed twice, besieged 23 times, recaptured 44 times, attacked 52 times. This is a city that knows how to recover. This is also a city that remembers its attackers. This time, they're not knights from the West, but men in riot gear with batons for swords. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.